him back to life.
You know, people sit out on the front porch hoping people will come by.
Go forth and do good. It's insane. I have the most understanding wife in the world.
I treat everybody the same thing.
Oh, that's the other thing I love about Marietta. It's like a melting pot.
You are listening to Marietta Stories. Each week, veteran podcaster Bill Nowicki brings you the heartwarming, interesting, and fun stories from the people that make the community of Marietta, Georgia, a place to call home. Here's your host, Bill Nowicki.
Hey everybody, Bill Nowicki here, and I went to Big Bethel Church in downtown Atlanta on Auburn Avenue to watch Heaven Bound, the 89th year of Heaven Bound, and it was fantastic. And I decided to do several interviews at that church, and I got the bishop of the AME Church, which is African Methodist Episcopal, the senior pastor at Big Bethel, and Big Bethel has some great history. Nelson Mandela spoke there, preached there, just to let you know. And I talked to several of the actors, and I know you're going to enjoy the special bonus episode of Marietta Stories. So here we go. Reginald T. Jackson of the AME Church for the whole state of Georgia. Thank you for talking to me.
Oh, I'm delighted to be here with you.
Your first time you've seen this play.
Matter of fact, believe it or not, tonight will be my first time.
Really?
He asked me if I would come and do a cameo, and I told him I'd be delighted. I've heard so much about it, so I am excited to see it myself.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit more about the AME Church history. I would love to know. I don't think a lot of our listeners have a background.
Okay, well, the AME Church was founded in 1816. It's really the first Protestant denomination that was founded on American soil. Its birth was in Philadelphia, and it grew from the northeast to the south. In fact, it's very strong in the south. 20 districts, 13 of them in the continental United States, and then there are 6, Africa, the West Indies, and in Europe. Mm-hmm. So it's really an international worldwide church.
And it stands for African Methodist Episcopal.
African Methodist Episcopal, meaning its founders were those of African descent. Methodist in terms of its denomination. Episcopal represents the fact that it presided over by a bishop.
Okay. So talk a little bit about when slavery was around, African folks were not allowed to congregate. How did the church kind of connect the community of the slaves and all that?
What amazes me about the history of the AME Church is that back in 1776, while the founders, the colonialists were really dealing with England and trying to overthrow the king and begin the country, while they were meeting at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, about 4 blocks up the street, Richard Allen, the founder of the AME Church, had started a church. Today it's called Mother Bethel. It's the first property owned by blacks in the United States. It's still open today. And so I said, while the nation was dealing with a revolution, dealing with the entire nation, the colored people in Philadelphia were also dealing with a revolution as related to the fact that they did not believe that God was a respecter of person. And so the church was born in Philadelphia. During the time of slavery, folk who were AMEs were instrumental in terms of the Underground Railroad, in terms of being abolitionists. The AME Church has always been in the forefront of fighting and opposing slavery, segregation, discrimination. And then, in fact, as the country was moving forward, AMEs again became involved in the political process. In fact, the first African-American person in the Congress was an AME preacher by the name of Hiram Revels from, in fact, Mississippi. Then, in fact, going on even further, dealing with the issue of separate but equal. Again, it was an AME preacher who filed a lawsuit because they would not allow his daughter to go to a predominantly white school. And again, that issue went before the Supreme Court. That's what led to the Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education. So the AME Church throughout its history has been involved in issues of ending slavery, civil rights, and opportunity.
Talk about the community that you've created with the AME Church and how it brings folks together to even today.
Well, I think the ongoing task of the church is to be about what I call the work of the kingdom, and that is including justice, opportunity, righteousness, making sure that the hungry are fed, the naked are clothed. So the AME Church has had an ongoing commitment to that. In fact, one of the ways in which the church grew was the fact that it ministered to the needs of people. And that, in fact, is what we've got to continue to do today, is minister to the needs of people, to let them know that, in fact, the church is committed and is concerned as it relates to their quality of life, and to see that, I remind people, we are Jesus' hands and feet on earth. If they want to see Christ, they need to see him through us. Mm-hmm. And so that is our ongoing work.
Talk about what it was like for you growing up. I don't know where you grew up, but what was it like growing up, and looking back now, how did that influence your life today?
Well, it's very interesting. I was born in the state of Delaware, next to the smallest state in the nation, but I remind people it's also the first state in the nation. And interestingly enough, which some mornings I wake up and look in the mirror and laugh, because as a kid, the last thing in the world I wanted to be was a preacher. I was determined I was not going to. In fact, I didn't like preachers. Across the street from our house in Dover, Delaware, was a Baptist church, and on the corner was AME Church. And at least 2 Sundays a month, those ministers and their wives would come to our house to have dinner. And they would be sitting there eating and stuffing themselves and laughing. And the kids would be starving, because back in that day, the kids couldn't eat till the adults got finished. So I was just through with preachers. And all the preachers I knew were black suits, black shoes, I rode black cars. And I had 2 grandmothers. Both of them kept telling me, "You gonna be?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I was gonna be a lawyer." I looked at every law show that came on television. And now look at me today. In fact, I'm getting ready to laugh now. I got on a black suit, got on black shoes, and came here in a black car. So the Lord has a sense of humor.
Now, what was the moment that all switched for you? Do you remember?
Well, in fact, I was in college. And again, I had my mindset that I was going to be this lawyer. I looked at Perry Mason, Burke's Law, Judge for the Defense, all these law shows. And somehow I kept getting pulled away and next thing I knew, I was in ministry. And both of my grandmothers reminded me, "We told you you were going to be a preacher," which drove me crazy. So,
well, how do you preach to the young people today? Because they're somewhat removed from the struggles of the civil rights movement and segregation and all the separate but equal stuff. How do you reach them today?
Well, in fact, that's the challenge for the church, and I think that we have to be aware of is that, for example, the average age of a congregation today is about 67. Ironically, the average age of a black in the United States today is 31. And what I remind ministers and all is, young millennials are not moved by the fact that you talk about our ancestors gave their lives for the right to vote and all of this and that. Because the reality is most African Americans today were born after the Civil Rights Movement, after Dr. King, after the period of, protests and all of that. And so where you have to reach them today is on issues that matter to them. And to their credit, I discovered millennials are moved by issues and by causes. And so, for example, the issue of poverty, that's a very important issue to them. Even the issue of climate change is important to them. So in terms of preaching, one of the things you have to preach about is the fact where Jesus took a particular interest in what he refers to as the least of these, the hungry, the homeless, those who have been in prison. In addition to that, preach the issues like the environment, that when God made heaven and earth, he made it for us, and then he left us in charge of it. So however the environment is today, it's primarily because of either our success or our failure. And in light of today, I primarily emphasize our failure to exercise wisdom and stewardship over the environment. And millennials, they become, those kind of issues are important to them. Mm-hmm.
So what do you anticipate tonight? You know, big performance, big night. What do you think you're going to get out of it, or hope to get out of it?
Well, I'm hoping to get past my one line. If I flub on one line, I'm done. Okay. But the other thing is, this represents the 89th year they have done this. This is my first time, so I am absolutely looking forward to it. You're saying one thing I was moved by when I came in, even though this is being held at Big Bethel Church on Auburn Avenue, this would be a very diverse crowd you have out here tonight. I think that's awesome.
Well, I'm honored to be part of it, and it was an honor to meet you. And excuse me, honored to meet you and spend some time with you. And I wish you luck on your one line.
Well, I've enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you, and if I get the one line right, then I have a big smile on my face. They can bring me my Academy Award.
All right, there you go. Thank you so much.
Certainly will.
So, 89th year. How long have you been the pastor here at Big Bethel?
Okay, I've been the pastor 7 years. So I've been through 83 through 89. And of course, we're looking at the big celebration for next year being our 90th celebration.
What do you have planned special for next year? Do you have any ideas yet?
Well, a couple of things. First is we're starting on the publicity from day one. That we're really commemorating this. The origin of Heaven Bound was actually a play that started to try to rescue the church financially. So there was a fire in the church was damaged, and so the members of the church started this play as a way to go around the community and even the nation to raise funds for that. It became famous from its beginning, and so we look forward to telling the story of that, telling the story to the city of Atlanta, to the state of Georgia, and even to the United States.
Mm-hmm. What does it feel like? Because there's all this history here, and you're just
carrying a baton.
Right. What is that? What do you think about when you get up and lead your congregation?
Well, it's daunting. It's let me tell you a little bit of story related to that. It's a little bit intimidating. And Bishop Jackson is here. We have two. When I got here, we had two current bishops that were previous pastors. So my predecessors who were currently on the bench, and my office, which is in the building next door, passes a gallery of pictures on the wall from this bishop who was pastor and this bishop who was pastor. So every morning you get up and you go to work and you're passing all of this lineage and history that's there. If you look outside, right outside this door, Big Bethel is one of the few churches that puts their pastor's name in granite. And so you have granite stones that list the pastors on these two walls and the walls across from on the other side of the pulpit. And it shows the tremendous legacy of what's here at Big Bethel. So it is an intimidating place that it takes some getting used to about being pastor at Big Bethel. Then you pinch yourself and say, John, settle down, you'll make it.
But what was the most intimidating part? Like do you remember your first sermon and what you what your goal was when you took over?
Well, the first sermon I preached here in May of 2013, was on Jesus said to Peter that you are now the rock, and on this rock I build my church. And it was on the foundation of the church. And I was kind of like Bishop when he said he wanted to get through his line. Well, I wanted to get through my sermon. And so no matter what it was, I wanted to get through that sermon. And God blessed us. Sister Marianne was here, and she's my greatest fan, my wife, and the kids were here. And so we just had a good time with that. But it's an intimidating place to preach on a Sunday-to-Sunday basis. And sometimes you see that with ministers who come and visit, that they're kind of intimidated by the whole presence of what's here. Nelson Mandela preached here. Martin Luther King preached here. Jimmy Carter spoke here. And so when you look at the history of this place, then famous people were here on a week-to-week basis. And there you are trying to say a word that will encourage people to live better lives.
Tell me about the community. What is it like to be a pastor over this community?
This community historically has been known as the Fourth Ward, and so it's urban downtown Atlanta. Now, due to gentrification in Georgia State, then it has gone through some of a metamorphosis, but it's an awful lot of Fourth Ward still here. It's an awful lot of underprivileged kids and seniors and things of that sort. Because of that, I think that lends itself to Big Bethel's biggest blessing. If you look across the nation, urban black churches are kind of taking a beating because of those things. Gentrification, blacks moving out to the suburbs and things of that sort. What I believe has been a tremendous blessing and has sustained and allowed Big Bethel to flourish are the ministries that we have to the community. So our largest ministries to the community are a halfway house for men making a transition from substance abuse. We have a senior citizens home where we take care of seniors. Right in back of us, we're going through a $30 million renovation of low-income housing. These are all examples of ministries that were started by Big Bethel, but in addition to that, we purposely chose to have those ministries stay towards their calling. To give you an example, that this building we're going through a renovation with, we could have made a lot more money by going through market rate housing or even mixed use housing. But when we renovated it, then our calling was true to stay towards low income housing because we wanted to stay towards the mission of Big Bethel AME Church. I believe that God has blessed us tremendously because of the ministry that we've had here and that we continue to have.
What do you think the future holds for Big Bethel?
The future of Big Bethel is tied to the future of urban Atlanta, is tied to the state of Georgia. Bishop Jackson didn't tell you that he's very active in politics and social action, and he makes a statement that I hope we understand when he makes it. He says the state of Georgia is the focal point for where we're going with African Americans, where we're going with politics, where we're going, as we go into the next 10 or 20 years. I believe Atlanta's the focal point of Georgia. And so with that, then we're very excited about what can happen here in terms of reaching out to young people, in terms of ministries we continue to build. If we stay true to these ministries, then God is going to bless us at Big Bethel. Now, if we pull away from that and start to look only inside of ourselves and then make the mistake of some churches to say that our all in all is to have a good Sunday morning service and that's it, then I think the blessings go away. But Big Bethel's been committed through the years, not just under my administration, but through other administrations towards reaching out. And I think that's the future of Big Bethel as we reach out. Well,
it's been an absolute pleasure to be here and see what you do to help keep this community together. I mean, churches are such an important part of these urban communities, as you stated, and it's been an honor to talk to you and the rest of the folks here, and I'm excited to see the play.
Well, thank you so much, and welcome. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Hey, Brother Floyd, Bill Nowicki. Glad to meet you.
Hey, Bill, how are you?
Good, good. So you're the rich man. You got a tuxedo on.
Yes. Several years ago, I used to watch Mr. Irvin, who is now deceased, and I watched him play that role for several years. And it didn't dawn on me that, hey, one year you're going to be doing this. And so this is my 5th year playing the role. And we have 2 evenings. Dr. Stan Pritchett normally does the Saturday night, the contemporary production. And so I'll take the traditional production on Friday evening. So it's really been a joy for me. And so one of our kids, Francis's son, and he was looking at me. His father plays St. Peter in the play. And so he said, this was one Sunday, he said, "So you're the one that went to hell, huh?" I said, "It's just a show, okay." He said, No, you went to hell.
Oh, boy. Well, how important is this play to your life, would you say?
Well, I say that it's very important. I participated in many of the ministries here, and this one is an annual event, and I really look forward to it. It's inspirational. Personally, I think sometimes we associate the rich person as being stingy and doing the wrong things morally, not doing the right things morally. But it gives me an opportunity in this play, knowing who I am. I am a Christian brother, and playing this role because this is an important role in our life, in our daily lives. The story of the pilgrims on their way to the pearly gate. So I look at it as an opportunity not only to provide a message, but also to just remind me personally too of my responsibilities as a Christian.
So tell me about, did you grow up in this church?
No, I actually grew up in Alabama in a Baptist church. And so it was a small community, and all we ever knew was church. We had Sunday church school. Worship was like once a month. And so church school was like every Sunday. During the summer, we had this musical, they call it, not church school, but they call it music school, music class. So we had like a 3-week session where the church would bring in a professional, and they would teach us the hymns, and they would teach us all the music of the church. So, and I sing in the choir all the time. I sing tenor section. And so even here at Big Bethel, when I joined the 80s, I joined the D.T. Babcock Voices of Inspiration, which is a gospel choir, and also the men's chorus. Joined that also.
So the Big Bethel, why did you come to Big Bethel versus some of the other alternative churches?
Well, we visited other churches. My wife and I, we visited other churches. And I would say the primary reason that I joined Big Bethel AME Church was my wife had been part of the AME Church for all of her life. And so although we visited other churches, other denominations, she was definitely set on staying in the AME Church because at the time she had a connection or office that she was fulfilling the obligations of that. So from a professional standpoint, she wanted to worship in the AME Church. So I said, okay, I'll try it. And so I joined here. We joined here, and we had great ministers here. And so a lot of programs, a very diverse congregation, mixed age groups. So it's just really been a joy. And we have 2 adult sons, and they also grew up in the church here at Big Bethel. They were born, here, and so they were baptized here at Big Bethel. So it has a great meaning for our family.
So this is the 89th year, and you've been coming, I assume, since the 80s when you showed up. Why is this play so important to keep going? Why do you use people from the church as part of as the actors?
Right. Well, this play started in the 30s, and
it's interesting. The church burned in the 20s, and so a few days before the church burned, for some reason, the insurance expired. And so the minister was out of town when the church burned. So they called, I think he was in South Carolina, and said, the church is burning or the church is burned down. And see, so his immediate response was, well, tell them we will rebuild. And so they rebuilt the church. And so this play was designed to raise funds to defray the cost of building this new church. And so it happened, and they continued to do the play every year and year. And so after the mortgage was paid off in the 40s, they still continued to do the play. And you can see generations of families who played major roles in this morality play. And so, and before I became a part of it, this production, I would watch various characters, and it was just amazing to see these generations singing in the choir and playing the various roles. And I watched some of the major characters and their sons as they moved on, and as they were called home to glory, then their sons and daughters became a part of the play. So I said, this is really something special that needs to keep going, needs to continue. And so my role right now is not to stay in it forever, but to try to inspire some other youngsters, younger than I am, to come along and assume the roles and play some characters.
Do you look forward to performing in front of a crowd?
I do. I do. I'm kind of a prankster, and so the role and being a dramatic actor, as I call myself, kind of fits into my psyche, and so I kind of like that. I like to mock people, talk like the minister, like you could hear me laughing at our pastor, Brother Floyd. So I like doing that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So it's kind of a natural. So yeah, I'm kind of grown. I've grown into this role, I think.
So what would you say to people that haven't experienced this morality play? What would you tell them it's like for the people that watch it? What do you think happens to them when they see this play?
Well, I think, first of all, each person that comes and sees the play for the first time, I think they can identify with, maybe not personally, but with a relative in their family or a friend that they know. So, oh, well, this character, my friend, I'm reminded of my friend when I see this role that's being played during the production. So I think that it will have a positive impact on each person that attends it for the first time, because they're going to say, oh, wow, that's life, I have some people in my family that drink too much, or maybe they gamble, maybe they used to, they don't anymore, but they can relate to it, I think, and say, wow, that had an impact on me just by coming. So, wasn't that great? Maybe I'll come back another year.
Yeah, so I guess you guys aren't slowing down. You have Mr. Young's very young.
Yes.
Yeah, so you have to keep bringing in new people. It sounds like you're pretty good at it.
Yeah, we do. And I think one of the services that we've implemented now, initially it was Thrive, but it's targeted toward the young adults, 18 to 40. And it's especially set aside for Sunday afternoon at 1:30, because when they were doing the survey, the young folks said, hey, I'm in college, I just can't get up. I just can't get up early Sunday morning. So it would be better if I would worship if it was at a different time. But I just can't get up because, I'm young and I'm doing things and I'm out with my friends late and partying and so forth. So if it was like in the afternoon or Tuesday or another day. So that is the challenge, is to try to inspire others to not only join the church but become a part of the ministries. And once you get in, you'll see a lot of other things that you might like to get involved with as it relates to the ministries.
Well, I'm super excited to see the play. You got me all excited to see you and everyone else, and I really appreciate your time. And is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you wanted to share?
Well, I think that it's that we've covered, a lot of the major issues. But we're excited about. They've been telling us that the 90th celebration is going to be very special, and we're going to do some unique things. So I'm excited about that next year.
Well, great.
90th consecutive production of Heaven Bound.
Heaven Bound, 90th next year, but 89th today and tomorrow. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. Great.
Good luck tonight.
Hey, all right. Jory Young. So here we are at Big Bethel AME Church in downtown Atlanta on gosh, I'm so terrible with names. Auburn Avenue. Yeah. Yes, and you're a Bethel baby. Explain what Bethel baby is, Jory. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting
me. So Bethel baby. So essentially, my parents were members here. My father actually attended this church in his youth. My uncle pastored later, McKinley Young, and my father, Roland Young. So this is the church of their youth, and I was born here literally on a Sunday. So,
really?
Yeah.
Now tell me, what was it like growing up in this church? What was it a large part of your life?
Yeah. My faith community has been essentially an extension of my family. Literally, with my family being, members here and part of ministerial staff, but also my friends that I grew up with, very close, lifelong friends. Our mothers shared maternity clothes because they were all pregnant with us in the 80s and 70s. So, very great community of family and friends here.
So what do you remember as a child? The atmosphere in the church. What was what was like your earliest memories of being at this church like?
Oh, goodness. With childhood memories, this is kind of our playground. You spend all day in church, various meetings waiting on your parents. So, we would run the aisles, climb the poles, even lost a finger here.
What?
Yeah. I tell you. Had a finger closed in the door, leads up to the sanctuary, playing freeze tag with a friend. So I have run the gamut of things that you can do here, but it just feels like home. Like that's essentially the way that you can put it. It feels like home, having morals and values instilled in you, but also being around people who you have familiarity with, that you share blood with, that you eat at their table and sleep in their houses. So it was great. So
tell me about this play. When did you first remember seeing the play? It's the 89th year of Heaven Bound, yes. But tell me what you remember and why you decided to get involved.
So earliest memories is just watching from the pews as a child. Also being in it as an orphan. My older sister, she was an orphan. They always wrangled younger children to be orphans just because, it was one of the easier roles until you mature into the other roles. But, just seeing it, the pageantry of it, the antics of the devil, watching the various devils. My father also played the devil before me as well. So it's always just been, kind of like a very nice time of year. People who may have been members who may not have been here presently come back to lend their voice and their gifts and their talents for the play. So it's always it's kind of a warm and fuzzy, very nostalgic for me. So
is this the first time you played the devil?
No. So this year, I want to say it's either my 6th or 7th year coming into it. So yeah, I've had a few now. So
do you like playing the devil? Is that give you a chance to expand your horizons, maybe act out a little bit?
Yeah, I do love it. It was a bucket list thing, actually. One of those things that you think that you never do. I remember being a kid just watching in awe, during the various rehearsals and the plays over the years that I've grown up in the church. And here I am, and I'm that guy, leaping over the altar and trying to sway the pilgrims as they make their way on their journey.
So if let's say someone hasn't experienced Heaven Bound, mm-hmm. What would you tell them the experience is like just overall? What's the feeling people get? What do they leave with?
I would definitely say it is a very immersive experience. Most times when you go to theater, you kind of have, the fourth wall, as they say in theater, but here, the angels and the pilgrims, they are literally in the aisles with you. The devil, may be right next to you. Things can happen depending on how the night goes. You literally hear singing behind you at various points in the program, in the play. It's just great. And then you have the actual edifice of the church with the stained glass and heaven being decorated. So, it's just great. You just have to experience it yourself, though.
What was the first time being the devil? What did that feel like to you?
Oh man, so much anxiety. Everything went wrong that could go wrong.
Like what?
Oh man, so I ordered my suit. It came the day after the next day. So literally, my friend at the time who was supposed to be helping me wasn't there. Didn't have anything. I was really just kind of spitballing. Didn't know how I was going to have my makeup or anything like that. Everything was just falling apart. I was literally, I was not a pleasant person to be around the first year. So,
but what was it like did you feel like it was going to work out when you got out on stage or out in the sanctuary?
Yeah, definitely. It is, it's an adrenaline dump. It's all nerves and anxiety until you get out there, and pretty much it's a sprint, because once I'm out there for the remainder of the play. So, it's literally, just running to and fro, like they say in the Bible. So, yeah.
What's your favorite scene for you? And don't give too much of the play away, but what's your favorite scene?
Oh, goodness, my favorite scene. Ooh, if I had to say just watching it, for me growing up, it was always the soldier and the devil. And you really get to see this, quintessential good versus evil clash, swords and shields and, the whole nine. So watching that as a kid, that was the main thing we always got excited for, just to watch an actual battle. For me now, being in it, I would definitely see maybe Pilgrim of the Promised Land or The Hypocrite. I think with both of those things, it just allows for a lot of
ad lib.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. That would be a good term for it. So yeah. Each year is something a little bit different.
Well, I'm super excited to see you out there, and I guess you're going to have to put on a lot of makeup.
Yeah. I need to go and paint myself red and, get in my my headspace to do evil and to trip up people. So,
Well, good, and I'm sure you'll be back at church on Sunday to get back in the groove of being a good guy.
Yeah. The day I get to shed the good guy image somewhat, be a little bit more mischievous than I am normally. So, yeah, but it's going to be a fun time.
All right. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thank you for the interview. I appreciate the time.
All right. Next.
Thank you, Drew.
All right, let's thank the folks at Big Bethel Church. You can go to bigbethelame.org to learn more. This is Bill Nowicki saying thanks for listening.